Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another PFL fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for PFL World Tournament 7 2025 semifinals, or you can say Edwards versus Silveria. And yeah, let's just get into the predictions. So the full card of prediction, scroll down to the bottom, let's get right to it. First fight, we got, I'm not going to say all that stuff. That's just a lot of extra words for no reason. 205 bout, Xavier versus Brexen. How do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence, Brexen to beat Xavier. But Xavier is pretty much a one-dimensional fighter. He's like a striker. Again, if he's fighting a striker, that could be a thing. Like, you strike with a striker, he could be dangerous. But Brexen is a striker. He's a bigger striker, and he's a younger fighter as well. Coming off a knockout loss, but I think he'll be able to use his size and grappling to take advantage of Xavier's one-dimensional game and grind him out, maybe even sub him. But I'll say decision. I think Xavier might have some moments here, but I think Brexen will eventually be able to tie him up, use his size and length, and be able to drag him to the mat and just grind out a decision, maybe even TKO him. But I'll say decision here. But confidence level, low confidence, Brexen. Again, I think he'll use his size and grappling and his youth to beat the one-dimensional Xavier to a decision here. So, in this one, I have Brexen via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the heavyweight division, we got Nasameo versus Popoff. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going average confidence Popoff to beat Nasameo. I just think Nasameo always has questionable pacing. It's not like he's a big puncher. It's not like he's some great finisher, especially when he's going with anybody decent. I think Popoff should be able to have success on the feet. Definitely should be able to have success in the grappling department. I don't think he stops Nasameo, but I do think he just clearly outworks him. Outworks him on the feet, maybe even hurts him a couple times on the feet. Gets takedowns and just grinds him out to a pretty clear, maybe even dominant decision after 15 minutes. So, in this one, I have Popoff via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the lightweight division, we got Biagio Ali Walsh versus Ronnie Gibbs. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Biagio Ali Walsh to beat Ronnie Gibbs. Probably a setup fight, but I ain't even do the research. So if I didn't do the research, I'm gonna be honest, I ain't gonna do it. But it's probably a setup fight. So I'm not gonna go like average high, no need. It is what it is. I ain't betting on this fight. Biagio Ali Walsh to win this one. Again, they probably tailor-made this fight for him. And I'm gonna say like second round knockout. Probably won't get a guy that don't really have the most wrestling. So Ali Walsh could probably be the better wrestler here. Definitely be the better striker here. But yeah, should be able to break Ronnie Gibbs down and get him out of there. Second round TKO. So in this one, I got Biagio Ali Walsh via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the heavyweight division, we got Valentin Mowski versus Alexander Romanov. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Valentin Mowski to beat Alexander Romanov. And yeah, I think Mowski's the more around the fighter. In his last fight, he fought a very good fighter. He really lost that fight, but he fought a very, very good fighter. He was able to take some good shots, weather, and work hard, like enough to give them the chance for him to get a gifted decision. So he showed his toughness, his grit in that fight against a much better fighter, in my opinion, than Romanov. And yeah, Romanov should be the better wrestler, but Romanov notoriously has terrible cardio. And I think Mowski should be able to address the grappling. Maybe Romanov have some good sets early for a little bit, but I think Mowski will do a good job of addressing the grappling, making Romanov, work, and then get him to gas and being able to outwork him, maybe even stop him. But I'll say like a decision. I think this probably goes to a split decision, but I think Mowski ultimately will be able to address the grappling Romanov and then just be the much more well-conditioned and a fighter more equipped to push the pace when it matters and beat Romanov by decision here. So in this one, I got Valentin Mowski via decision. Now to the next fight, we have in the light heavyweight division, we got Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Simeon Powell. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going average confidence Simeon Powell to beat Antonio Carlos Jr. I think Simeon Powell has good enough grappling to be able to address the takedowns of Carlos Jr. And Carlos Jr. is pretty much a sitting duck on the feet for Simeon Powell. It might be a little bit of rough patches there for Powell. Powell is not the cleanest, smoothest guy. He makes mistakes. He's a little bit sloppy, a little bit this, a little bit that. But he finds ways to win. So again, this probably should be a fight he should run away with, but it's probably going to be a little bit of rough patches here. But ultimately, I think he'll be able to find the finish and be able to get Carlos Jr. Find that extended period of striking on the feet. Find his way back up if he gets taken down. Again, it might be a little bit sloppy patches, might be a little head scratches, might be a little bit of sweats here and there. Because, again, Simeon Powell is not the smoothest guy. He got dropped by Xavier. He kind of took a little to the second round to really turn it on against Brexen. Again, the guy he's not that smooth. Just go out there and do what he's supposed to do. He kind of had little bumps along the way. So it might be a little bit rough, but I think he'll get it done. Again, he'll be able to eventually probably stuff the takedown, get some space, start to land some elbows, and when he start to land some damage on Carlos Jr., we'll see him quickly welt once some damage is applied. But in this one, I think Simeon Powell eventually puts him away in the second round, probably like early to mid second round stoppage for Simeon Powell. So in this one, I got Simeon Powell via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Dalton Rosa versus Aaron Jeffrey. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Dalton Rosa to beat Aaron Jeffrey in the rematch. Jeffrey was able to use his calf kicks effectively and to stall Rosa out in their first fight. But I think Rosa worked on his conditioning. He worked on his takedown. He worked on his IQ. Like, he looked much more polished, much more composed in his last fight. And I think he'll be able to do that. I think he'll be able to show more improved striking. And I think he'll be able to step his takedowns better here. I still think this to be a close competitive scrap, probably go to another split decision. But I think Rosa will be able to, again, address the kicks more, get better takedowns, establish more control. And, again, be there late more. I think in the last fight, getting his legs shoot up in the pacing and not really being there in the later rounds because, he kind of faded clearly. I think he'll be able to have a more consistent flow, more consistent pace, and be stronger in the later rounds. Not to say that he's going to dominate the later rounds or even need to necessarily win the later rounds. But, yeah, I think he's going to be able to put up a better fight in those later rounds. And throughout the fight is overall as well. Do a better job of scoring takedowns, do a better job of controlling takedowns, and do a better job of setting the takedowns, using takedown to land strikes, and using the threat of the takedown to land strikes. And also probably catching the kicks and scoring takedowns off that. But again, a close competitive scrap. Jeffrey's definitely going to push him. But I think Rosa, again, will have made the adjustments and will be able to beat Jeffrey in the rematch. But again, another close decision. But this time, Rosa being the one who gets his hand raised. So in this one, I got Dalton Rosa via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, we got Sergio Pettis versus Rafion Stos. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence Rafion Stos to beat Sergio Pettis. So these guys are former training partners. I don't know how those training sessions went, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm going Rafion Stos. Well, I'm not going to ignore it because it's not like, oh, Pettis low-key was dogging him in practice for 20 years now. But what I'm saying I'm ignoring is I'm not going to get too much into that. I don't know what's in the gym. Neither guy really said this and that. Nobody really said too much. But Pettis and his brother have historically struggled against wrestlers. They're probably like, is a family probably like 1 or 2-6 or 2-7, 2-7 against wrestlers. So not the best record against wrestlers. And Rafion Stos does have good conditioning. He does have good wrestling. Does have good control. Could be a little better in the control game. But yeah, I think Pettis is going to make it interesting. But I think Rafion Stos is going to be able to use the takedowns and be able to edge out Pettis. I don't think he finishes Pettis. I don't think he dominates Pettis. But I do think he gets clear takedowns. I do think he gets clear control time. And, is able to limit the striking of Pettis. And also make Pettis, had to keep worrying about the takedown threat throughout the fight. Even when he's not on his back. Like, even when he's not on his back, he's going to be worrying about the takedown. And Rafion Stos does have pretty solid striking of his own. Obviously, Pettis is a much better striker. But the threat of the takedown is going to keep Pettis honest. And, again, the takedown and control himself are going to, put Pettis in a bit of a hole. Like, he's going to have to, spend time on bottom, and then when he's up on feet, he's going to have to, be forced to try to make something happen. And that's never a good spot to be in. But, again, Pettis has struggled against grapplers and especially wrestlers, and Stos is a very solid wrestler. World champion level, at least outside the UFC champion level. And I think he'll be able to put that wrestling to Pettis and beat him by decision here. So, in this one, I got Rafion Stos via decision. Now to the next fight we have in the light heavyweight division, we got Phil Davis versus Sullivan Collie. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Phil Davis to beat Sullivan Collie. Phil Davis is definitely showing his age, and he's up there in age. He's 40 years old. He definitely should be retiring alongside John Jones. He's actually older than John Jones. But, yeah, Collie actually didn't look all that great in the last fight. He was getting dominated, getting taken down at will, couldn't do nothing. But he was able to, land some Travis Brown elbows. Those, I don't know what to call them, but I say Travis Brown elbows, little elbows, while somebody's taking you down, land him to the temple, and get the stoppage. But I think Phil Davis, he's been tough, hard to finish. And, he can make adjustments. Somebody's landing good elbows. He could switch to the single. He could go back to the clinch. He's not going to be like a low IQ fighter and just stay in that position. But, yeah, I think Phil Davis is the better wrestler here. He's the much older fighter here, but I think he's the better wrestler. I think he's the better striker here. And Collie was definitely struggling with his wrestling in the last fight. But I think Collie, one good thing he does have, he does train with Ryan Bader. I don't know if he still trains with Ryan Bader, but he did in the past. And Ryan Bader does have 2 wins over Davis, but Collie is not Ryan Bader at the end of the day. You can train with somebody, but you're not them. But I'll go Phil Davis here. I think better wrestler, better striker, and he could definitely make adjustments. I think he can have similar success that Collie's last opponent was having, and he can also have more success on the feet than the last opponent. So he can have options here. And I think after his last fight, I think Phil Davis will be even more confident to let his hand go a little bit earlier here. And it's not like Collie has particularly impressive striking. I think he's a big guy. Big guy. I think he'll have power, but I think Collie has never really shown me super impressive striking against, especially not against solid competition. So I think Phil Davis is a better overall fighter here. They both in the striking and in the grappling, and he has the conditioning to do it for 15 minutes if needed. But yeah, I'll say this is a decision. Competitive scrap, but Phil Davis' experience can come through. His wrestling will come through. His striking will come through. And he's going to be able to make those adjustments better than Collie here, so if needed. So in this one, I have Phil Davis via decision. All right. Now on to our main event we have in the middleweight division. We got Fabian Edwards versus Josh Severia. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'll go average confidence Fabian Edwards to beat Josh Severia. Severia has never really been a super great offensive wrestler, at least not to the level I don't think it should be too much of an issue for Edwards. And Edwards has shown, it's been kind of slow, but he has steadily shown improved takedown offense. Pretty big guy, strong guy. I think he'll be able to address the grappling of Severia and lock up with Severia, land heavy knees to the body, heavy elbows in the clinch, dominate at distance, dominate in the clinch, and be able to break Severia down and put him away in the second round. Yeah, this definitely got to be respected of the grappling of Severia. But as far as striking-wise, I think Edwards is a much better striker than Severia. It also helps that Edwards is coming off a stoppage over a guy who had, I think, beat Severia twice. So I think, and he was able to address Impa Kasangan's game. And so Impa Kasangan took Severia down multiple times and out-grappled, I think, in both of their fights. So if he could do that, I think he could address Severia's game. It's not like Severia is some super great grappler here. So, and I think Edwards will be able to address his grappling, do damage on the feet, and he was able to get up multiple times against what's his name, the Bellator champion. Again, he lost that fight, both fights, but again, that guy's a much better wrestler than Silveria. So if he could address their game, if he could address Kasangan's takedowns, he could address a lot of the other guys' takedowns. I think he's definitely well prepared to deal with Silveria and put Silveria away in this fight. Again, I think Silveria might get some takedowns, but I think Edwards will be able to get back to his feet. And if anything, those takedowns probably will wear on Severia because he's not going to be able to get the control time he wants. And Edwards is going to be big and heavy and be able to get back to his feet, get back to the clinch, land knees, whether his back against the cage or whether your back is against the cage, land elbows, cut Severia up and break him down over the course of the fight, then put him away in the second round via TKO. So in this one, I got Fabian Edwards via second round TKO. And so that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of fights for PFL World Tournament 7 2025 semifinals are Edwards versus Silveria. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.